you see it already. And now we're talking about kids having their best friend will be an AI chatbot or their first romantic partner. I mean, for God's sakes, there will be that right around the corner. Is it there? Our kids saying my first girlfriend or boyfriend is an AI chatbot, and it's like, well, we didn't evolve to have AI chatbots as our best friends. That's really weird.
So last we spoke was back in May. We did two, April and May.
Yeah.
So you've posted quite a bit. Well, I don't know if you've posted quite a bit, but I've definitely seen some new stuff, from you since then. I mean, I guess start. What have you what has hit the streets since we've spoken that's kind of, I don't know, perked your interest in terms of good and bad? Like, are you more optimistic, less optimistic? Because it's like 6 months in this world is so much time. It's so much
It
time.
is. Well, and I'll ask you, the same to see where you're at. But I mean, it does seem like it's moving, full speed
It
ahead
is.
from everything I see. There's very few safeguards
Yeah.
or guardrails. Although there's a lot of talk about it, I don't see too much happening with that. And it really it's getting to be put in everything, and it's just like all the different apps, and like it's like if you're a startup of some kind in tech, you better be talking about how you're going to use AI,
Yeah.
because it's still the big deal. And I think everybody's rushing, although all the startups can't succeed. I mean, you got too much money. It's like when the internet first started, and I'm old enough to see how that went. Is like it's a huge gold
Hmm.
rush, and then a lot of it doesn't pan out. So I imagine there'll be some kind of, I don't know if market correction or whatever, is some of these fizzle, like some of the ideas. But
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think AI in general. I don't. Some people, oh well, it's kind of a fad like Bitcoin, or like it'll calm down. And I'm like, I don't see that. I don't know why it would.
Oh, they think
Um,
AI itself will fizzle.
well, I've heard
Yeah.
some people say that, but
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
think it will. I think it's like not only here to stay, but I still don't think a lot of enough people get it, like what we're dealing with, which I find frustrating. Of where people are,
For sure.
the thing that comes to mind is the whole rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic.
Hmm.
But I'm not that dire, but I do think if people aren't seeing this coming, it's to me like a hurricane is offshore, and it's like building to category
Yeah.
5, and I don't know where it's going to hit. But I do know there's a storm of sorts brewing, and just the level of change itself, I don't think people get this, is we didn't evolve to have so much change so quickly.
Mm.
Even positive changes are stressful. Getting married, buying a new home, getting a new job. But like trying to keep up with the treadmill of life, it's speeding up quite a bit. And I think we're all running on it, trying because we're trying to keep up with technological evolution, and biological evolution cannot keep up with technological
It's way
evolution.
slower. Yeah.
And yeah, it's a fundamental mismatch that I think is wearing on us. Yeah, and I don't see that changing. I see the treadmill speeding up, if anything. Like as we're trying, oh, now pretty soon we'll have Siri and Alexa will all be full AI chatbots, voice
Hmm.
interface. That's just a matter of time, because that's what people want, and that's what it's like, oh, that'll be great. Well, it is, but it's weird that we're going to all have chatbot, tutors, and chatbot friends, and
Yeah.
chatbot deceased loved ones. I mean, we've talked about that. It'd just be in everything, and I think with tremendous benefits, but you cannot have the the downsides without the upsides. That's just an inherent way the universe works. It's like yin yang. You can't have one without the
Yeah.
other. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Where do you see things going? Are you more optimistic, pessimistic, stressed, less
I
stressed?
I I'm split. Well, I see it as one of these things coming at us that's has amazing positive benefits, which we're all going to be excited about. It's going to automate a lot of the mundane tasks that we typically do. Generating images, for example, the artists are going to, like, I don't know where they're going to go away. The stuff that you can do with just text. I want to describe to the machine what I want a picture of, and out comes this amazing picture that I had in my
Yes.
head, and because I didn't have artistic ability with my hands, I couldn't create it. But now those days are behind us. And it's and even and that's a micro example of the larger. But so that's one thing. Great. That seems, now you could argue, well, artists are going to go extinct, and where does art really go? And okay, fine, that's one negative. But uh, I see that as a positive. I can generate art just from my thoughts. I can just think, okay, just describe, and I get art now. I can generate music from text. I can have it sample
Yep.
my voice, your voice, and the Beatles, and make a song of you and I singing with the Beatles theme song. And
Yeah.
it sounds
Yeah.
exactly like the Beatles with our voices, or you want to just put John Lennon's, whatever. So
Yeah.
I guess with, then you add deep fakes and generating video and images, and I guess all that is seemingly very positive. But I guess my biggest concern is that we struggle to agree on what's true right now, or 5 years ago, or
Right.
10 years ago. We still, as we've been, I think social media has divided us immensely. But the the sort of the we've had such a hard time coming together to agree on what's true now. And now, if you add in every single bit of digital media that you consume, there's almost going to be no way of verifying if it's true or not. I can have
Right.
any deepfake video, generated, any audio generated. I don't know how the courtrooms are going to deal with evidence and video evidence
Yeah.
and audio evidence that used to be sort of like the gold standard. If you had someone on video, well, that's pretty much a done deal.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. I mean, and anyone that's listening that
Yeah.
doesn't
Right.
understand what
Yeah.
deep fakes can do, and we are in the infant stages of this technology. I mean, it
Yep.
really is. So I'm really concerned at what, deep fakes are going to do, fake images, fake transcripts, fake anything, because I don't know how you stamp something as authentic in the digital world anymore, and our entire lives are in the digital world. So it it and maybe I'm just not up to with the latest, sort of technology in terms of on the other side that's going to try to validate and verify the digital ecosystem, if you will. But I see some bad actors, that are going to just have a field day with this. And I see
Yeah.
young kids
Yeah.
and, adolescents, and going through all sorts of rough time with
Yeah.
trying to understand what the hell's real and what's not as their brains are developing.
Yeah.
So I know that's a very cloudy response to your question, but I do see the opportunity for a tremendous amount of bad for humanity. I really do, as well as
Yeah.
immense amount of good. So,
Yeah. And okay, and I'll tell you the big thing I've been noodling on that I think your listeners. I've told you I've got a whole story arc about
yeah,
AI, and it's really weird because the backstory, I guess, on that is that, and I told you some. I mean, I've always been interested in science fiction and all that
hmm
stuff, and Star Trek, Star Wars, Blade Runner, and technology, and I did a book on it, and video games, all that stuff. Always had my eye on AI, but it was always in this future,
right,
far off, and then suddenly it's here. And when I first ran into Chat GPT and started using it and seeing what it could do, my mind just kind of exploded with like all the what ifs
yeah,
and like connecting all these dots and trying to figure out, how this is going to affect well-being, humanity, my kids' future, and I'm like bad actors and deep fakes and cyber terrorism, and
Right.
it was like my mind was so overloaded. But after I went through, I would say about a week of maybe existential terror
Mm.
with AI, I kind of punched through it and I was like, okay, well, I've got to, practice what I preach as a psychologist and not worry about things before they happen,
Mm.
and, just all sorts of bits of wisdom and therapy for myself. And I was like, okay, I kind of reconstituted and made it through there. But then my mind was still trying to create, what does this mean for humanity? And how is it going to impact us in the future? And my mind is, I don't know if you have this experience or how many people do, but it's like I'm not thinking about it. My mind is like, my mind just on its own keeps thinking about it and connecting dots or asking questions. And so I'll be at the gym, I'll just be hanging out, and I'll be driving home, and my mind is just going through all these different
Mm.
things. And over time, it's woven some of these ideas together into more of a narrative arc that I'm going to be exploring. And I'm trying to find out what's the best way to do it.
Mm.
Blogging. Now I'm thinking maybe I do it on TikTok and like go into the belly of the
Yeah,
beast.
yeah, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not sure. But here's one of the ideas that has hit me lately is we are we are at a new phase. I think we're at an inflection point for humanity for a number of reasons.
Mhm.
But one is we're at the first time in the history of humanity, we are at want saturation. Like,
Mm.
okay, we evolved to meet our needs, okay, historically, right? So, in our hunter gatherer tribes, if we go back in time, 300,000 years ago and talk to one of our Homo sapien relatives and say, well, what do you wish for? What dreams do you have? They would say something like, well, a good kill, good food on the fire, that we're not being eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. There's a stream nearby and no one's fighting. And, I have a mate or whatever, family, and people are getting along.
Mhm.
No one dreamed of being a tech billionaire or a YouTuber, an influencer, or to win an Academy Award, or to play in a rock, being a rock star, or Taylor Swift, or whatever. All that stuff is wants.
Mm.
I want these things to make me happy. Well, we didn't evolve to meet our wants. We evolved to meet our needs. Now, meeting our not meeting our needs can make us unhappy. So if you don't get enough food, water, sleep, safety, basic,
Mhm.
we evolved to meet our needs, because if we didn't, we would suffer, and the suffering would motivate us to meet those
Mhm.
needs. Like, oh, I'm hungry, I need to, I'm motivated to eat, then you gain satiation. Okay. Now we live in a world where our basic needs are met, right? It's like, okay, we got shelter, we got food. If I said, hey, Vinny, I can, make it so that you have a lot more food to eat, you'd be like, I already have enough food to eat. Shelter, clothes, all that. It's like, well, we have all those basic needs met in affluent Western
Mm.
societies. Well, now we get to wants. What do we want? And what do you want to make you happy? Well, when I was young, there was a scarcity of want fulfillment, because like I could not have all the video games I wanted. I couldn't have all the music I wanted. If you had 20 albums in your collection,
Mhm.
that was pretty good. You could not have 100 or 1,000 albums that you wanted. So there was a gap between what you wanted and what you had, which kept you kind of working towards something. But oddly enough, not having everything we wanted, I think, was a good thing for
Yeah.
us, because it kept us striving and kept us in, and that becomes part of the hedonic treadmill of capitalism. So you got capitalism is about, once it fulfills our needs, now it's about fulfilling our wants. Like, and it changes it. Capitalism, I think, is a good thing overall, but now we're at a new point in the history of humanity where we have so many of our wants fulfilled. Like if I said, hey, Vinny, I can give you a million more times YouTube videos to watch. Would that make you happier? You'd go, no, Mike, I have plenty of YouTube
Right.
videos to watch. In fact, I could live 1,000 lifetimes and not watch all the cool. Okay, wait. How about reading material? I can get you access to like, a million times more books. You're like, nah, I have plenty of books. I can't even read them all. I got so many stacks of books. I can't, a million more
Mm.
times books isn't going to help me. Okay, how about music? Okay, Vinny, I'll give you a million times more access to songs. And you're like, well, I got them all on Spotify. I don't even have enough lifetimes to listen to what I can access now. Okay, video games. I'll give you, and you're like, nah, I got plenty of video games. I have a stack I haven't even played. They take me forever to get through. I don't have enough time. Well, we're getting to a point like,
Mm.
what do we want that could make us happy? Because technology has made it so easy to fulfill all of our wants. Biologically, we can't consume anymore. It's just like a billionaire. Once they have a certain amount of money, more money doesn't equal more happiness because you can buy all the shit you
Right.
need with the money you have. More money, there's only so much good food you can eat. There's only so many, good books you can read, so many concerts you can go to. It's like at a certain point, it asymptotes, it flattens
Mm.
out, and more is not better. More is just more. Once we have enough, or more of enough doesn't move our happiness needle any. We're already gluttonous with content. We are choking on content. We have too much content that we can't consume anymore. So now we got AI that's, I can get more artwork. It's like, well, or I can generate my own song. I have enough songs. I have enough artwork. I have enough video games. I have enough. Like, what else can I get that is going to move the happiness needle? I think in Western countries with an iPhone is like a wish fulfillment device.
Right.
Like it makes our dreams come true, but guess what? We did not evolve to have our dreams come true. Or the dreams that we had were just for a full belly and clean water and stuff like that. So now we're living in a world where we can get everything we want, anything we want, at any time we want, anywhere we want, to where our wants are fulfilled so much that what else could we want? Like I had this experience when I was seeing U2 at the Sphere in Vegas. I saw U2, all-time favorite band. Sphere is awesome, the visual
Mm.
spectacle. But as I was watching it, I was like, I don't think my brain can take in anymore. Like I couldn't handle more of a bigger sphere
Mm.
or with more stuff coming at me. It was like, I mean, I enjoyed it, but it's like I reached biologically, we can only taste food that is so good.
Right.
We can only smell things that smell so good, perfumes and, colognes and stuff. We can only visually appreciate at a certain level, like movies would be another great example, special effects. When I was growing up, you used to see things that you had never seen before. Superman, the guy flying, and it
Right.
looked more realistic. Star Wars, where it looked like they were really out in space, and you're like, wow, look at the Death Star and look at the,
Mm.
TIE fighters and all that stuff. The Matrix, where bullet time and they were doing this stuff. Then you get the CGI stuff, and now it's like, I've seen the universe explode. I've seen buildings
Right.
explode. I've seen worlds explode. I've seen superpower fights with like all triple backflips and, rays shooting out of people's fingers and eyes. What else can you show me
Right.
that I can take in and is meaningful? that, and it's like, I don't know that we can take it anymore. But capitalism is going to keep trying to give it, and AI makes it even easier.
Mm,
So now we're at a saturation point, like a want saturation. And that's where I think we're at an inflection point, because we have reached the law of diminishing returns has kicked in right now.
mm,
Like, we cannot, if I say I can give you more social connections, you can connect with friends and family, and meet new people. It's another one. You'd be like, I've already got too many. I can't even keep up with the ones I
mm,
have. Now that's another example of, like, more is not better. It's just more, and it's actually stresses us out, because chasing more is not the way to
mm.
happiness. It's at a psychological dead end now, which is what I think why there's more depression, anxiety, suicide rates, is people are on the hedonic treadmill that's going faster and faster, trying to, like, chase these digital red herrings of happiness. But the new video game system isn't going to make you any happier than the other one made you. The iPhone 15 doesn't make us 15 times happier than the original
Mm.
iPhone. Our brains weren't meant to be happy all the time.
Yeah.
They can't be. It's impossible. I mean, it just is biologically impossible, which is why the first Matrix didn't work. So you remember in the Matrix, when Agent Smith got Morpheus and
Mm,
he had him in the chair, and he took off his earbud and he said, you're a cancer, and all this. And he said, you know what? We made a first Matrix and it was perfect. It had everything you needed, and you couldn't handle it. We lost
mhm,
whole crops of human beings. So we had to create a second matrix that was imperfect, that give you something to chase after and fight against, so that you could, like, live in
right.
it. And I think
Mm,
Wachowski's knew is we did not evolve for utopia. Utopia would suck.
mm.
So that is what we're trying to deliver, utopia with technology. And those technology utopian vision people, forget the name, but it's like, we can't have utopia. Do you understand evolution? It is biologically impossible to live in utopia. We would be miserable. From our hunter gatherer ancestors, we're already living in
Mm,
utopia, if you from their perspective, and we're about to tear America apart.
mm.
Like, why? We've got a great country, and here we are fighting tooth and nail. It's because this world, we didn't evolve to live in it, and we keep changing it to make it more and more technologically infused, which brings us more and more away from the way our hunter-gatherer ancestors
I mean, it makes total
lived.
sense.
So I know that's a whole
No,
lot. Does
it
that
makes
make
total
sense?
sense. Anyone who's listening can just feel that. I mean, I look at, again. I look at my. I said this. I think last time we spoke. I look at my kids, and I can see it in their minds where they have a completely different outlook on life than I did at their
Yeah.
age, because a click of their finger gets them what they want
Yes.
in so many ways. And
Yes.
the struggle we have is to just say no when we
Yeah.
fail in saying no at least half the time. So
Oh, yeah. Me
there, that
too.
instant gratification and that that want being
Yes.
met so often, it doesn't prepare you
Yes.
for the regular world with
Right.
so that's again that's what another thing I'm concerned with. And I think that the thing you just articulated is exactly, I could summarize it in a couple sentences by saying what I've observed, and that's really it's just seeing the immediate, again, you feel it in yourself when you look at an 8 and a 10-year-old with my kids, and you just see when they don't get something when we're out, or it's like,
Yes.
what, their brains collapse. Like, what do you mean I don't get what I always get what I
Exactly.
click, or what I feel like, or what
Yeah.
I a
Yeah.
Robux or a Fortnite thing, or
Yeah.
whatever it is, a new game. You don't
Yeah.
buy games anymore. You buy a game pass and you scroll through hundreds of games. Like, I want to play that one now. That's the new
Yeah.
world. It's not like going,
Yeah.
so everything you're saying absolutely resonates. I guess you said we're kind of at this impasse, so that kind of implies we can go left or right. What are the two paths we what are the choices coming up?
Well, here, this is where, I think Henry David Thoreau, remarking on the industrial age of the time, he said we have improved means to unimproved
Mm,
ends, which I always liked. Is like, I think we need to hit the reset button. I think we're this inflection point we're at. at a certain point, we've got to realize that happiness is getting off the treadmill and getting onto the hiking trail.
Yeah.
Like we have to, like, and I think, getting on the spiritual side, like Jesus said, to live in the world but not be of the
Mm,
world. Capitalism wants us to be of the world because that's how it makes
right.
money. Is we need to buy into this thing of more is better, and we need to realize, no, more is part of the prop. Chasing more is not better. We need to unplug more and connect with each other. That's the thing that hasn't changed, is what really makes us happy. Hasn't changed in thousands of
Mm,
years. It's the main thing. Once we get our basic needs met, is each other.
mm,
Is the better our friendships are, our relationships are, our family relationships, everything. That's where our happiness resides. That's why I was noodling on this. Think of this, is like nothing could ever improve so much in life that losing a loved one wouldn't absolutely destroy
mm.
us.
Yeah.
That's what
There's no
matters.
number of
You could
cars
have
or no
all
number
the
of
video
no size.
games,
Yeah.
cars, none of it,
There's no size of a house or multiple vacation homes
none.
or whatever you want to inject any other thing
We'd
here.
give it
Yeah.
all up for
Yeah.
love, all for
Yeah.
love. And that's what matters. It's like those connections,
Yeah.
those deep, satisfying connections. And to put it in perspective, is like, if you had to, and I know I'm the same way. If someone said you had to climb Mount Everest to the cure for your child's cancers at the top of Mount Everest, you'd be like, all right,
Where are my
let's
boots?
go. I'm gonna get
Lacing
it.
up the boots. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
There's no stopping me. I'm climbing to that top of that effing
Yeah.
mountain. And that's how important. We'd give up everything for love, and in those, in our loved ones. But yet here we are, we're chasing the number of followers we have on social media, and like, oh, the latest meme, the cat video or whatever it is, or and they all have their
Mm.
place. But capitalism, of course, doesn't care about moderate proportions. They want us, like, they get more money from the clicks, the
Maximize
eyeballs,
attention.
and the
Right. That's
shares.
the
Yeah,
incentives.
our attention
Right. It's
economy.
the intent. Yeah.
So it's built on this, but it's taken us down the wrong way. And I mean, that's where I'm like, well, Henry David Thoreau is no dummy. Like in Martin Luther King, he remarked, with a nod to Thoreau, we have guided missiles but misguided
Mm.
men.
I like that. Yeah.
And it's like, look at our democracy. It's like, we're whatever, since a couple hundred plus years into this, and we're about to tear ourselves apart. There's no, I mean, I guess there's fake news and the Russian troll farms trying to poke, stir us up, but ultimately we're so polarized now. I mean, we attacked our own freaking capital,
Yeah.
and we got another hell of an election coming up, and I'm like, doesn't it seem like we're regressing, devolving in ways? I find discouraging that we're at this point in the game and we're still not able to love our neighbors as
And I think
ourselves.
you could, and what's scary is I think you can trace a lot of it all back to technology, and in a sense where, Rogan just had Tristan Harris on and Asa Raskin, and I didn't know who Asa was, but Tristan Harris, he did the Social Dilemma, right? I don't know if you've seen that the documentary.
Yeah, I saw it.
Fantastic,
Yep,
but
yep,
everything it was. I mean, these guys are absolutely brilliant. So I mean, everything they talked about summarizes, because they were on to talk about the problem with AI or their concerns with AI and how important the time in right now. And they drew
yep,
the corollary to social media and how, how
yeah,
because they had a phrase called when with technology, it's usually not the technology's fault, it's how it's optimized. So they call it narrow optimization at the expense of the whole. So so
hmm,
social media was optimized for clicks, for attention, for maximum amount of attention, right? And by doing that, it 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 causes these perception gaps, right? So imagine if social media had, if the incentives weren't just more clicks and more attention, but it was more like bringing society together, the algorithms would be fed completely, would be run on completely different, algorithms. The logic behind them would be completely different. So if so in terms of they optimize for the narrow, meaning more attention, more clicks, infinite scrolling at the expense of basically humanity. So,
Yeah.
and they did the study on there's a nonprofit called More in Common, and they did this study called they created this metrics called perception gaps, and it was amazing. And I didn't go into the details here, but they talked about how if social media had been optimized for to minimize perception gaps as opposed to maximize clicks and attention, then you could the country would not be the world would not be nearly as polarized. Like social media's attention grabbing incentives have literally been the underpinnings of why we're so divided, because Zuckerberg and Instagram and TikToks, they're not, they're because they're optimizing for never let, they want to show you more things that are going to get you to click more things. So, so that's why if it bleeds, it leads. If I have an opinion, they know that showing a dissenting opinion on the other side is going to make you click more. So you're seeing more opposing views that you hate, as opposed to more things that could collapse the perception gap. And
Right.
it was just fascinating. They talked about it. Anyone listening, you got to go back and listen to the episode because I'm not doing it justice. But
Okay.
they really did a fantastic job of explaining, when you have technology and you're optimizing for the narrow at the expense of the whole, some bad shit can happen, right? And you could say social media has divided
Right.
us more than ever because of their optimization of attention, clicks, attention. You know, so their whole point was, now here we are on the precipice of this AI revolution. You could say it's already here, but it's only going to accelerate and get worse. So,
Yeah.
what is AI going to be optimized for? Was their basic position? And if you look at what every company's doing right now with OpenAI, with Microsoft, Google, Facebook, they're just in this mega arms race to release their next gen large language model to outcompete the other guy. But to what end? What is the technology being optimized for? Everything. It's not
Making
making money,
money.
right? So
Making money
right,
for the
but
companies.
if 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 the incentives, I think it was, they also quoted, was it Charlie Munger, who's Warren Buffett's business partner? He said, "Show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcome." It's a great quote, right? Show me the incentives, and
Hmm.
I'll show you the outcome. But I think their point was, you know, at this AI precipice we're at, if the if this technology is going to be optimized narrowly, it is most definitely going to be done at the expense of the whole, and the whole is humanity. So I totally agree
Yeah.
with that, and I don't know. And they're starting whole foundations to start, hopefully, start to curb this. They made a point of too. They released Social Dilemma. It got 150 million views, and there was like, they really talked about the pitfalls of social media and just the impact it has on us, our psyche and humanity. And they basically said, well, nothing changed. Why is that? It's like because people, and I don't remember the details I get into, but they basically want to, their concern about right now was, we're at this point right now where we could have been 25 years ago with social media. AI, I think, is going to be even way more impactful than what social media did to us, especially
Yes.
because they want to work together.
Yeah.
So, just listening to that scared me, because I just don't see anyone stopping and slowing down and saying, "Hey, let's," because capitalism is such a powerful machine. It is such a
It
powerful
is.
engine. So, yeah, I don't know.
It's a race to the
It, it,
bottom.
it is,
It's
yeah,
what it is the game theory, if you're
yeah.
familiar with
Well,
that,
explain that
is,
for the listeners, because that comes up a lot in these
so
discussions.
yeah,
Yeah.
so game theory, I don't know if it's behavioral economics it came from originally, but the idea is when I think example I like to use is like Lance Armstrong and the
Mm,
doping for the Tour de France is, okay, it's a big EPO gave like a 10% advantage on your distance, cycling. So if you did not dope during a certain era of the Tour de France, not only would you not win it, you probably wouldn't even be
Right.
in
Right.
it. So, like, you have to do it to keep up with the other guy. So in a market like capitalism, let's say Anthropic says we're going to put a lot of guardrails on our
Mm-hmm.
AI, a whole bunch, and we're going to red team it and do all the testing to make sure. And OpenAI says, well, we're going to just see what happens. We're going to, like,
Right.
fast track it with, there aren't specific regulations that we have to adhere to. So let's just move forward and break stuff. Let's just see what happens, and we'll put it out there, and then we'll decide what to do afterwards. We'll let the market
Yeah.
decide. And it's like, well, then Anthropic, if they lose market share, to then they're incentivized to, like, keep up with OpenAI, because otherwise you lose out. And if you have a bunch of companies, the ones who are playing it real safe and ethical,
Right.
they're going to fall behind. So each one has to, like, give up to keep up with the. If you want market share, you go faster and you push harder and you build it
Right.
smarter as fast as you can, and then try to deploy it to gain the market share. And with everybody does that, it creates this, like, breakneck thing that just keeps staggering upward, upward, upward,
Yeah.
and in competition, because there's nothing to stop it. And you don't want to lose out on being the top of the hill, king of the
Right.
hill. So that's what's happening now with the AI arms race. Is you have, Meta, who's like, they're is it Lacoon or whatever, they're very much like open source it, put it out there, make it fast. Open AI's pushing, everybody's pushing the envelope, because the prize, the glittering prize, is all this money. And it's like, well, if they end up on top with, like, billions and billions of, market value, and everybody's rich in the company, then, well, it doesn't matter whatever, sorry, you chumps, you're SOL. We got the market share. And that
Yeah.
capitalist way of thinking, or how it operates, is that's a big problem with AI, because AI is not like every other technology. Like, if
Yeah.
we think back to the evolution of technology, a 10% improvement in an electric light bulb isn't that big a deal. 10% improvement in a radio, TV, whatever, cell phone, well, okay, iPhone 15 is better than the original iPhone, but what? They're basically the same, 15 years difference. And it's like, it's got a better camera and more storage and a better speaker, but basically it's the same technology. A 10% improvement in AI changes the
Mm.
world. That's a big freaking deal when it's 10% smarter, every time it improves. That's a big deal. That's a game changer. That means every way it's used can improve 10%, and then 20 it's like compound interest. It just goes up and up and up. So I think that's another inflection point. Is AI, improving AI is not like improving a television or a
Yeah.
speaker or other technologies. Every time it improves, everyone will want the new improvement, because if you have an AI that's 25% better helping your company
Right.
code, compared to the other gaming company that doesn't use AI and says, well, we're not going to use it because we don't want to put any programmers out of work, and we want humans only programming. And someone else, there was one study where they did a head-to-head comparison of humans. This was on Hard Fork, and they had humans versus humans with AI assisted programming. They gave them various tasks, and the AI assisted was 55%
Mm.
better. So it's like, if you're in
Yeah.
a capitalist economy, 55% is huge. And so you're incentivized to grab that. And it's like, well, you don't have, it's another psychological construct that comes into play is diffusion of
Right.
responsibility. Is that you don't
It's
take
too many
personal
people. Yeah.
responsibility
It's
because
too many.
it's like, oh, well, and then it's related to tragedy of the commons, where, if
Yeah.
everybody's has a farm and you have a farm, and it's like, well, there's cattle and runoff and stuff, but but if everybody says I'm going to maximize my land and the cattle and whatever, and then it starts to mow down all the
Mm-hmm.
forests, and then we've got, it's called the tragedy of the
Mm.
commons, that everybody pursuing their own self-interest, the aggregate effect of that is climate change, is these global problems, because we're all
Right.
connected, but we are not acting like we're all connected because we didn't evolve to connect with 8 billion people.
Yeah.
So there we're back to the hunter gatherer tribal mentality of, I connect with a small group of people. We didn't evolve to think of 8 billion people. So we have some like things, when I do the connect the dots, I run into these
Mm-hmm.
problems, and I just like, not that we're doomed, but I'm like, boy, that's going to be a thorny one to overcome. Like Tristan Harris saying about these, with AI, how do we do it different than social media? Well, how has the market economy changed to allow us to approach AI differently than social media? I
It
don't know
has
that it
not. I
has.
agree.
Who's going to
Yeah,
change that?
I agree, and you know, you said a couple things there. I mean, I think these companies being, these companies start, and they, like any other company, they have an obligation to their shareholders, right? Make more money and grow. That's
Yes.
so. The problem with,
Yep.
I think, when you go back to maybe the agricultural revolution or any other big breakthrough, I think the difference here is, there might have been some, corners cut there and EPA this or I don't know, some OSHA regulation on some new tractor that maybe people skimped out on because they wanted to make more profit, right?
Yeah.
That always existed. I just, it just, because people are people and we're all flawed, I think, right? And you're trying to just make
Yeah.
things more efficient and quickly, and who can you kind of pay off to get to the next. The problem is, I think in this case, the unintended consequences of those shortcuts are massively more
Yes.
dire, right? I think that's the big, like,
Yes.
it,
Yep. Yeah.
it's just the unintended consequences of not following, not putting the right gates around AI, I think are going to be, that's where I think it's a whole new territory that we don't, if the arms race continues of just better, 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 and if you're not using the better, then you're going to go out of business. I I don't know
Yeah.
where that ends, but I don't think it ends well. I don't
Yeah.
think.
It doesn't. Yeah, yeah. And another one I was thinking of is, even with regulating AI on the worst case scenarios of, the bad actors and things like that,
Mm,
cyber attacks, um, what we have never done before that I know of really is regulate progress
mm,
itself. To say this type of progress itself is not good for us because it takes us into a territory that we didn't evolve to live in. It's creating a world we didn't evolve to
mm,
live in. And I keep going back to evolution just because I don't think people fully appreciate how impactful our evolutionary heritage. Everything is anchored in our evolutionary
mm-hmm,
heritage, like what tastes good and bad to us, what we experience is pleasurable or unpleasurable, or hot and cold. Everything is
right.
anchored in our evolutionary, how much sleep we need, how much physical activity. And we know when we're not getting outdoors enough, we're not physically active, repetitive stress,
Mm,
things, chronic sleep deprivation, the foods we eat. We've got an obesity epidemic because we didn't evolve to eat the types of
right.
foods and the quantity of foods with, and being so sedentary. You see it. You see it already. And now we're talking about kids having their best friend will be an AI chatbot, or their first romantic partner. I mean, for God's sakes, there will be
That's
that
that is
right
right
around
around
the
the corner.
corner.
Yeah.
Is it, there are kids saying my first girlfriend or boyfriend is an AI chatbot, and it's like, well, we didn't evolve to have AI chatbots as our best friends. That's really weird.
Tell me
But
more about that.
building a
What?
better,
Well, you did
what?
some. So, can you dig into that a little bit? Have you been tracking some of the companies doing some of this stuff now? Was it Replica and other things? I know you wrote about that a while ago. I
Yeah,
don't know if that's related to.
yeah. I've played with Replica a while, but the chatbot I find to be quite a dingling. Like they haven't solved that I've seen the long-term memory problem. So your interactions, they think of how much data that
Mm.
is of remembering from conversation to conversation, like all the stuff we've told it before, and then you have millions upon millions of users, and that ends up being a lot of data
Mm-hmm.
storage for it to sift through and say, oh, I know the last time we talked you mentioned
Right.
this, and I wonder, it can't do that. Like I'd tell it my favorite song, and then the next time I say, "Do you remember what my favorite song is?" And it forget. In fact, it'll say, "Oh yeah, of course I do. It's and it'll name off a Coldplay song, and it's like, no, it's this U2 song that I've told you, where the streets have no name. I've told you like 20
So we're not there
times,
yet. Yeah.
and she's yeah, and I'm like, I find it really irritating and shallow. So I'm like, but I do know this is the entry
Right.
level chat bot. So the progress that I was saying, I don't think they can regulate is a better chat bot. Like how is the government going to step in and say, we're going to regulate an AI that codes better than its predecessor? We're just going to regulate it because we think an AI that can
Right.
code that well will be bad for society. So it can't do that. Like the government isn't going to regulate progress, but this isn't progress. It's taken us into territory that we're not going to, want to be there eventually, because we're just not. We didn't evolve to
Yeah.
live in a sci-fi world, and we can't biologically evolve fast enough to keep up with technological evolution. That is just a fundamental mismatch. And we're trying to, and I think it's making us all a little
Yeah, and the
crazy.
technology itself is hacking all the biological underpinnings, whether it's
Yes.
dopamine, whether it's, it just
Yes.
knows,
Yeah.
so that that's why
It,
software companies work with
exactly.
psychologists, psychiatrists. They're not just software engineers. They
Yes.
work to, well, how does the brain work? Okay, what? Okay, and then I will
Yes.
code to that.
Yeah.
So, I,
How can we exploit it? And
yep,
and hey, it's okay to do it. It's legal, so I'm just going to do it, and I'm not bad. We're just offering the people what they want. They're free to
right,
choose.
right,
It's like, well, they are, but you're also like using every trick in the book to hack our brains and get us to click, to scroll, to engage. And they don't want us to use it mindfully. They want us to use it
right, yeah,
mindlessly. So they want us to reflexively just click on things and
yeah.
scroll so we
Yeah,
stay
yeah,
in it,
I think I
because
I
that's
think I
how they
told you
make
last
their
time.
money.
I scream in my house. I'm like, "Hey, no mindless scrolling." When I see my son doing this, I'm trying to get
Yeah,
them to understand that you literally can get in a trance and do the infinite scrolling. Infinite
yeah,
scrolling is a I think as a Raskin, the guy I was talking about with Tristan Harris, as a he invented mind not sorry, he invented infinite scrolling as a concept, as opposed to having
yeah,
to load the new page, physically hit a button to load the new page. So
yeah,
he invented it for less, I would say, malevolent reasons that it's being used for, but that is the point of what if I can keep your eyes on the screen forever, that is the goal of the algorithm. That's the goal of the platforms,
yeah,
and it's just I don't. It's such a menacing foe. It really is.
yeah.
It's because it's
Yeah. And if you're working at a company and you're getting paid, $250,000 a year to do that, and you're like, well, this is my task,
right,
and I'm not responsible for everything the company does. They're just asking me to do this, and that's what I'm getting paid, and I'm providing for my family. And if I plant my flag and say, no, I won't do that, it's wrong, they'll probably
right.
fire me and put someone in position who will do it. So it's like all part of
Yeah, the
this
whole
ecosystem that's like, it's like we're all in it. And it's like, even me saying, well, I have a lot of ideas about AI and how this connects together and blah blah blah, and maybe I'll blog about it. How do I get people to read my blog? Oh, I'll try a podcast. Oh, maybe I'll try TikTok.
right.
Maybe I'll get, and then it's like, well,
Now you're in
now
the
it's
machine.
like I always think
Yeah,
Game of,
you're in the machine.
yeah,
Yeah,
now I'm
yeah.
part of that. and now I'm kind of evil, or I'm part of, but I'm diffusing. Everybody else is
Right.
doing it, like, why
That's
does that? I'm offering good content and it's important stuff, but guess what? Everybody else is thinking the same
right.
thing. I'm not doing any harm. It's just little old me. There's like 800 million other people doing it. So it doesn't really
Right.
matter if I contribute, but the aggregate effect of everyone saying, it's not me, is it's just like climate change. Well, I'll drive the kids to soccer, and I'll drive them to school instead of have them take the bus because they can sleep in a
Right.
little later. And I know I put a little extra exhaust out there while I'm waiting in line to drop them off and pick them up, but it's quality time with my kid in the car and they get to sleep in a little later. So it's not, and then it's like, but the aggregate effect of everyone thinking
Right.
that, then you get these global problems that we did not evolve to think in terms of those. So then again, we go back to the evolutionary mismatch where it's a bit of a trap.
Evolutionary mismatch. I said that a million
It
times. Yeah,
all,
but we're here. We are. I don't. Yeah. I mean, maybe
we're on mismatch on
is this
steroids
is
is what
this
we're
but is
heading
this our
toward.
natural evolution to start to get away from just
That
biology and
is,
into silicon?
yes, yeah, yeah. That is a great question. I've noodled as like the accelerationists with AI. I think they see a bunch of
Mm,
this stuff, and they're just like, you know what? Maybe, and I can't. I kind of mixed feelings about this, but like maybe we are meant to, this is the natural evolution of things, that it, like, it all starts to merge, or I don't know what, but like it can't, maybe this is how it's supposed to go down. I
yeah.
don't know. And maybe somehow it helps us transcend our biological evolution as we merge with AI, or I don't know, or it like takes over the world and teaches us how to live better. I'm like, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have thoughts on that? Do
I
you have a,
thoughts. Yes. Answers. No. I mean, I mean, I
where do you
don't
lean? Do you think this is part of our natural evolution? Like, is like this is meant to be in some way, shape, or form?
meant to be. I mean, I do. I guess we all we do is keep making new things and better things, right? As humans, that's all we really kind of do. Is since the beginning of time,
Yeah,
okay, I got a spear, and then I could kill this animal quicker with a spear as opposed to, I don't know, throwing a rock at it or something. And I sharpen the spear. Ooh, I
yeah,
sharpened the spear. And then you just
yeah,
go to the wheel, and then you just start. You could just take that. Century after century after century, we just keep making better things for us to be more efficient and less likely to die. You know what I mean? And then you take it all the way to here, and we're
yeah,
still just making better things. Better, you can almost put in quotes, but it's still,
yes,
but it's still I think it's still the objective. We're trying to make better things, right? I mean, for this podcast and for my, for a lot of my thumbnails, I generate them with AI because I'm like, ooh, I know what the podcast conversation
yeah,
was out. I can summarize it with a few sentences. I give that to Dolly 3 and it generates me an image and I put that image on. So
yeah,
that's better than me spending, a half a day trying to draw something or whatever. I can't even draw. So for me, it'd be impossible or hiring a sketch art. Like, so that makes sense. We're just making better things. Right. Um, so to answer your question, is this the natural? I don't even like the word natural because that hurts my head a little bit. But is this just the progression how it's supposed to
yeah,
happen? I don't see it slowing down. I don't see it going in the reverse, and I don't see the incentives changing in any way. I just don't see them changing because like kind of like you said, we'd have to all almost have some epiphany and change our behavior like me on a weekend over the weekend, all of us. Because if you do it individually, any one person does it, you're going to be boxed out of the entire economy. Like you can't, like like
yeah,
you can't not use social media. You can't not use AI. No one company,
yeah,
no one person can do it because you're going to be made irrelevant and then have zero impact on anything.
yes,
You're right. So
yep,
you can't.
yeah,
It's like being that
yeah,
lone guy in Washington or gal in Washington's going to change everything alone. Well, guess what? You're not going to get any funding, any
yeah,
backing, any
yeah,
lobbying, anyone behind
yeah,
you. So good luck. You're going to have zero impact. So
yeah,
you know what I mean.
yeah,
So it's almost like you need to be that eccentric trillionaire, maybe that you almost have to be that unicorn that can change something because of some immense resources. Or but be outside of that, I don't see it going backwards. So I do think,
Yeah.
I know how some of this technology works. Not I'm not an expert in any of it, but I've been in technology for my whole life. I don't see much difference between our biochemical, right? How the brain works biochemically, and how, if you change all those, if you change the dopamines and the serotonins and all the chemicals, you change those to just electrical impulse signals. You can almost draw a corollary between, if you just take the God side out of it, because that's where I run into problems, where I'm like, I can't get there. I'm a believer, and at some point I think he's just going to step in and say, all right, this AI shit's too far, technology's too far. It's not going to be a flood this time, but he's going to end it all, right? Something's going to happen. Like, that's still a possibility in my head.
Yeah.
I know that gets a little worldly for some people, but I do think us, merging with machines. It's already started with cell phones. I mean, you can't, if you next time you leave
Yeah.
your house with your cell phone, tell me the first thing you do. You got to turn around, because you're kind of useless without it,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
once that starts, once the implants start happening, there'll be some naysayers like, no, I don't want an implant. But then you'll kind of be on the outside. Eventually you won't be competitive if you have to pick up your phone and type in what you want to
Yeah.
search for, as opposed to just thinking what you want to search for and having that
Yeah.
query the
Yeah.
entire world's database of information. So implants are coming. The ability to read minds is already kind of there. It's very infant, but eventually
Yeah.
that's going to be very good. Then you add AI onto it. So I'm not going to have to learn other languages, because I hear English coming
Yeah.
in, and I'm say I speak Mandarin, and it translates to Mandarin in my little earpiece, or in my implant, and vice versa. So then we have a common language. I, I don't see it stopping. So I do think this is going to continue, and it's there's going to be a lot of collateral damage along the way. I guess I just hope there's not enough collateral damage where it really brings us to our knees, societal knees. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. That's what I'm hopeful that as it becomes clearer that we need, like, this is a really big deal and we need to rethink everything. I mean, I think we will. I mean, like capitalism and
Mm,
how it chases more and better, and it's like I think we're choking on more and better. I think we've had we're at our biological
yeah.
limit that we can handle more or better, and it doesn't improve our happiness one
Right.
iota. That's the trouble, is like more and better does not equal more happiness or a better life or greater life satisfaction. It's actually that's where I think the law of
Right. Right.
diminishing returns, at least in Western affluent countries, like you have more than enough. So more or better of enough does nothing to your happiness. We're at that point for most of us already. In fact, it weighs on us when someone says, hey Vinny, I got the best streaming series that you got to watch, and you're like, oh, what is it? And then they name it, and you're like, oh, I'll add it to my list. I
Right.
already have like a 20 series I'm supposed to watch, and then not to mention all the movies I haven't seen and the Academy Award winning movies that I
Right.
haven't
Yeah.
seen. I've got such a
Right.
backlog here. It stresses me out, like that. And there's the paradox of choice, is that more is not better, but the more we have, it actually stresses us out to have so many options, because our brains didn't
Right.
evolve to like figure out 200 different types of salad
Right.
dressings,
Right.
or whatever. And when you're talking social phone, think of how many options there are on our phone to do, to listen to watch, to connect, to
Right.
play. It's like endless, and it's like overwhelming of like, what do I do with myself? And I think what we have to realize, if we really want to go for happiness and life satisfaction, it's less on our technology and more with each other in the real world. I mean, that's the simple answer, is
Right.
like that's what it comes down to, is capitalism and the system that we're in wants us to keep on that treadmill, running as fast as we can, chasing the next shiny digital object. And it's like, we have to realize it's not making us any happier. In fact, it's making us less
Right.
happy. the more we chase after it, and isn't happiness one of the things that we're the pursuit of happiness, that we want to be happy, but it's not from getting all of our wants met. It's from meeting our needs. And I think this is where I like the teachings of the Buddha, is
Mm,
non-attachment, is to just not care. There's where their freedom.
yeah.
The thing I thought of is, it, when we want nothing, we have
Mm,
everything.
yeah. That makes
When we
that's yeah.
want
It's beautiful.
nothing, we have
Mm,
everything. And if that's where you just sit and just say, can I be okay with where I am right here, right now? Like, and if we can find peace in that, that's the liberation, from all this, the treadmill. We have to realize the nature of our suffering is coming from
yeah. Oh,
chasing
absolutely.
wants that we're already filled with. We've got too much of them. So get off the treadmill and get into life more. And we can even do a quick exercise and say, hey, Vinny, what are your happiest
Hmm.
moments in life? Tell them to
Right.
me,
Right.
And you'd think, and you'd say, well, we went on this vacation here with the family. And one time I got some of my best friends and we went hiking in
Right. It's all the simple stuff.
Colorado,
Yeah.
or I went to
Yeah.
the it's all these, it's travel and connection. No one on their deathbed is going to say, I wish I'd spent more time on TikTok. That's my one regret, is I did not
Right.
spend enough
Or I
time
should have
on
bought the
TikTok. If
80-inch
only,
TV, not the 60, or the stuff like that.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, my life would have been, but we can all test it ourselves and say, how long did that new iPhone make
Right.
you happy? Really? After the novelty wore off of the first day, it's
Yep.
just a phone. The new car, the big screen TV, everything. We adapt to it because we didn't evolve to have it
Right.
to begin with. So it can only give us pleasure. It can't give
Mm,
us happiness. Happiness is in contentment and not wanting, not in constantly getting our wants satisfied. That's seeking pleasure, and that's part of the hedonic treadmill. We are so adaptive. We adapt to getting those wants met, and then it just seems like no big deal because, all the, we have so many of them met already.
yeah.
I don't even know what I want
Well, maybe
anymore.
maybe in
you know,
closing, that's, we said earlier, if there's a left or right, we're at this sort of impasse. Do we go left? And maybe going left is this bottoms up, realization that more is not better. We need to simplify, and that'll slow down the incentive structures, the capitalistic incentive structure, maybe enough to maybe it's, and it maybe to not narrowly optimize at the expense of the whole, like we said earlier. And maybe that's an option. I
yes.
that would be amazing. But we'd have, as a society, have to collaboratively sort of come to that realization at sort of within the same sort of timeline. Maybe that'll happen. I don't know. I don't see it. But and the other maybe the other option, if you go right, is that we totally merge with technology and it just keeps accelerating. And next thing you know,
Yeah,
we are on
yeah,
Mars because we don't need, I don't, the biological constraints of flying outside of our atmosphere don't exist anymore. And Vinny, quote
right.
unquote, can just go to Mars because I don't need oxygen because I don't have a biological body anymore. I can just, my little
Yeah,
digital representation can go there and come back. And when I merge with it, I have all the memories of my trip to Mars, but I didn't physically go there with my cells and my carbon based life because why would I do that? I would die. My digital representation went,
yeah,
my clone, and he came back. It came back, and we did an exchange of all the memories. So then I gave my memories to it while they were gone, and it gave memories to me. And
yeah.
now we're this. That's another kind of a cool movie, by the way. But
It, I know it does. It does make you think of, like, if you keep going, what would we want then? Okay, and you imagine this wish
right.
fulfillment. Well, okay, and we merge with technology. Then what would you do? Well, then What would I do? Like, at a certain point, I'd still get back to, we can't be happy all the time. As human beings,
Yeah.
biological organisms, we cannot be happy all day long because we didn't evolve to be happy all day long. We evolved in a rough world where there was
Mm-hmm.
scarcity, a lot of scarcity, and then there was fulfillment of basic needs, which felt really good because you were operating in
Yeah.
deprivation, of those needs. But now we've got the needs met, and then it's like chasing the wants. Well, now we're at want
Right.
saturation,
What's
or
next?
you
Yeah.
know, we've yeah, what else do we want? What else are we chasing? It's like, you know, to merge with the universe, or you know, it's like, what if we merge with technology, where would we go? Those are fascinating questions. I don't
Mm.
have an answer. I love noodling about it, but be if your listeners are, you know, respond or send you, it's like, where would you
Where would you
where
go
would
next?
you
Yeah, it's a
want
good
it to
question.
go? How far would you
Right.
like to take it? What would be the ultimate level you could imagine being? And this is the one where I'm like, well, and maybe we want to be part of everything and in everything, you know, like that we're merged with everything. And then it's like, maybe that's
Right.
already happened. Maybe we're in the simulation. You know, it's like, I don't know.
Exhausting, but it's
It's
fascinating at the
great.
same time. Yeah.
It's fascinating, and I think we help each other along, you know, along the way. And what you're saying is like the two forks in the road. Let's What I'd say to listeners is double down on what you know really makes you happy. And you can know that just from reflecting on your own experiences of what is really
Mm.
deeply need satisfying. And we're social creatures. We cannot go wrong with engaging in person, being in the world, engaged in activities with friends and family, and connecting with other people. That, I'd say, double down
Mm.
on that, and then find your own ways of not of getting off that treadmill, of recognizing the nature. Hey, we all get on it. You know, don't blame yourself. It's just the way it is, the
Yep.
world we live in. But by recognizing it, we can say, oh, I'm going to step off and put my phone, I'm going to get out into life for a while and go hiking or whatever it is that gets us engaged and connected with the
In
IRL,
real
in
life.
real life.
Well, Mike, that's a great way
Yeah.
to end it. Thank you for that. Hey,
Hey,
this was a
it's a
lot of fun
pleasure,
as
Vinny.
usual.
Thank
As usual, I had a
Yeah.
great time.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see where we're at in 6 months,
Well,
right?
maybe we do this every 6 months and just kind of reflect and say, where we take, are we
Yeah.
veering left or are we
Yeah.
veering right? Because I think,
Yeah. 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 And what can we do to try to veer
yeah,
us, you know, I don't know, one
very
way or the
cool,
other?
very cool. Mike, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay. You too, Vinny.